everybody, and welcome to the Memoir channel. And today we're speaking with Linda Strader about her memoir, The Summers of Fires, a memoir of adventures, love, and courage. So welcome, Linda.
Thank you, Nikki. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
And I believe you're in Arizona, right?
I am.
So yeah, I guess I'm going to ask you this question, and I'm sure many people have asked you, but what made you write this memoir?
Okay, so it's a rather complicated story because it started out with I had no intentions of writing a book, never even gave it a second thought.
Right.
But back in 2008, after having divorced my husband after being married 23 years, I lost my mom, I lost my job.
So big life changes.
Life changes were huge,
Right.
and I was unemployed for over 2 years, and I had just purchased a house because I'd just
Oh,
gotten divorced. So
oh, you
yeah,
put so much
it was an
stress.
incredibly stressful time,
Oh,
and there was no work. 2008 was an absolute disaster,
yeah.
and so while I was looking for work to apply for and just struggling to get through the day without going absolutely insane, I thought to write down, I was thinking more about the past and the future because the future was pretty darn scary.
Gosh.
And I wasn't sure if I
Right.
was going to be able to
Right.
keep my home or, find a job and how in the world
Yeah.
I was going to manage without my mom, who was my best friend.
Oh,
So
I'm sorry. Yeah. It's a
yeah,
lot.
so it was one of those things where I thought, the past is definitely looking better and better. So I thought, well, when I was in college, I wrote a short story about my first fire for an English class.
Yeah.
And the professor really liked it. And unfortunately, back then, which was like 1986, I didn't keep, I had a typewritten copy, obviously, computers.
Right.
And he asked if he could keep it to show it to future classes. And I thought, sure, go ahead and you can have it. I didn't keep a copy, but I got to
Mhm.
thinking about it and I thought, yeah, I wonder if I could recreate that. That was kind of fun.
So was that kind of what started you writing the
It,
book? Was more
yeah,
just trying to
it is.
recreate this essay,
Yep.
and then you
And
just kind of got deeper and deeper and deeper
it
in.
got, and it took me, so I wrote that first scene and then I thought, what else have I got to do? So I started writing more. I ended up with 90 pages and
Right.
I didn't know what to do with it. I thought, what's 90 pages worth? I don't know. And I shared it with some friends and family, and they said, well, this is pretty good. Maybe you could expand it some more.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
so
it's
I
a
wrote
very, it's yeah, because it's very unusual to be in a fire crew in the
uh,
70s as a
in the
woman with all
70s as
these
a woman.
men.
You
I mean, yeah.
you
So
betcha.
yeah,
So yeah, so I wrote 400 more pages, and so it
good
just
for
it just
you.
turned into a book.
So that kind of leads me into my next question is, so that kind of got you in, but what was it? What do you think it was you were trying to get out? Like, what were you trying to work out within yourself through this
Well,
writing?
and that was the key. So when I wrote it all down, I didn't know if I had a story,
Hmm.
and but then I had what looked like a book, and so I joined a writers group in my community because I was thinking I've got something here. I just don't know if it's readable, if anybody would care. And so it
Right.
took me a while to figure out what am I doing with this.
Hmm.
And I started connecting with people and their memoir writing. And I connected with a woman who later became my editor, and she was a retired creative writing teacher at the University of Arizona. And she kept explaining to me, she says, I see there's a lot more to the story than just firefighting.
So she made you
And
dig a
just
little deeper.
she did. She said, yeah,
Okay.
there's more in here than this. And so
Mhm.
it took me a while to ferret that out and realize how much I have changed and how much that career changed me.
So
And yes,
yeah, so your main thing that you would get working out there was the change within yourself.
was the change within myself and how, I mean, things were tough being a woman on a non-male
I
fire
can
crew.
only imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I dealt with that. I was not this gun-ho tomboy. I
Hmm.
didn't want to be a man. I
Right.
just I wasn't afraid of hard work. I liked the job. It was very satisfying. It was very exciting, and there was all kinds of adventure, and I
Mm.
traveled a lot. And I liked all of those things, but when I started getting met with discrimination and all these men trying to tell me, you can't do this job. We don't want you here. Go
Mm.
home and have babies. And
Oh,
so that was something I had to deal with every single year. I did this for 7 years.
yeah.
And then everything fell apart and I lost my job. And so it reminded me of losing my job in present day.
Hmm.
And it made me wonder, again, then I ended up having surgery. I was laid up for years. I thought my life was over. So this book became more about resiliency. I was
Okay, so
resilient.
that's fantastic. So that is actually your main theme would be
It is
resilience.
resiliency. Yeah.
Yes, fantastic. I love that. And I was going to ask you, how long did it take you to write? More or less. I mean, not exact, but
Uh, I would say 8 years.
ah,
Now I got it written in
yes,
much less than that, but to perfect it. And I started querying for a literary agent before it was done because I knew how long I've been told how long it took to
yeah.
find an agent. And I thought, well, I'm just going to keep working on it while I'm querying. And so all told, until I found a publisher, it was 8 years.
I mean, that is a long time, but and it's
Mhm.
also really hard to know when you're done, right? Because you just want to keep tinkering and keep fixing and let's
Oh,
just do it
forever.
again.
And the only reason I stopped
Oh,
editing is because my publisher published it.
no, I listened to a talk you did with on another interview, and you said something
Oh, yeah,
interesting. I think it was you. You said you rewrote the first chapter,
I
and
did.
that's when suddenly you got
I
attention.
started getting
So
attention.
I was
Yeah.
really curious, what was the change that you made to the first chapter?
Well, so what was happening was that agents were telling me, the ones that actually
Yeah,
responded, because
yeah,
most time they don't.
yeah, sure.
They'd say things like, "Oh, not a right fit for our company. Memoirs are too hard to
Hmm.
sell." But once in a while, somebody would say, "The beginning just didn't grab me." And of course, I was crushed at first, like, what? All that hard work. And then I'd think about it and I'd think, okay, so what is it about the beginning that is just not grabbing these people? And I realized I kept trying to edit it. And I thought,
Hmm.
no, I just need to do it over.
Yeah.
So I set aside the whole book and started over again, just jumping in to a fire scene.
So,
Uh,
I mean, it's difficult because I know there's always a starting point and a midpoint. So, did you just shift your starting point to somewhere
I
else, or what?
did.
Okay,
I did.
well, that's
And
amazing that you could do that, and also that made it seems
it
to have
made a
made quite a
huge
big
difference.
right. I
And
mean,
of course,
that's
then I would had to flash back to how I got there.
yeah,
But um, but that worked, and
yeah.
I was just so adamant that it had to be in a consecutive
Well,
written
I mean,
piece.
I've read the first chapter because you
Oh,
start when you're actually fighting a fire, your very first
yes.
fire. And I got to say, you're awfully brave because I would just be absolutely terrified. I mean, the fact that your water got lost immediately, and of course, your mouth is completely dry and the air is so hot. And so, I mean, that just sounds like panic station to me. So, yeah, that is a good
Yeah.
starting point because I immediately want to know what is going to happen to you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't want to give anything away because people,
Okay.
want to read it. But okay, so it took quite a while, and then I saw that you've actually written another memoir,
I
right?
have.
Uprooted. And did that take the same amount of time, or was it quicker the second time
Well,
around?
I was positive it wasn't going to take as long, but it took a lot longer than I thought.
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
it's hard to write a book, and
It's a labor of love. It really is.
it is, and it's one of those things where after I sent Numbers of Fire off to my publisher, I was just going nuts not having something to work on. And
Ah,
and
yes,
so I got out, I thought about writing a prequel, which is what Uprooted is.
yes.
And I started reading my journals, which were incredibly helpful. I'd write pages every day for most of my teenage years into my late 20s.
Yes, that's very helpful, I must
It
say.
very
Yeah.
helpful. And I started reading it and I was thinking, yeah, there's some really good stuff in here. And I can see some changes in me looking back that kind of bring the reader into why in the world I ended up on a fire crew. What was it that made me want to do that? I mean, because
Yeah.
that's not something I dreamed of as a kid, that I wanted to be a firefighter,
Right.
for sure.
Yeah.
So
And
it took a lot longer than I thought it was going to, but,
yeah.
not 8 years.
And then when you actually are writing, do you like to sit quietly and have no noise, or do you need movement around you?
Dead quiet.
You need to have,
Yeah,
so you
yeah,
like to just be at home, block everything out,
yeah, yeah.
no music, no
Nothing. Gotta be
nothing.
quiet.
Okay. And then another question I have is, if they were to make this into a film, who do you think would play the part of you?
Like you see, I'm actually writing the script.
Yes.
I am trying to get this into the TV industry.
Okay.
So I already know who I want to play me,
Oh,
but
well,
she's too
who?
old. Yeah.
That's
So,
okay.
and my friends have been throwing out names of people I
Yes.
don't even know who they are.
Yes.
But Reese Witherspoon, I really related to her book Wild, and to Cheryl
To
Strayed's
the when
Wild,
she would, yes,
and then
absolutely.
she
She
portrayed
would make
Cheryl
a very
Strayed.
good firefighter. She would be good.
Yeah, but
I would.
she's a little old for a 20-year-old, which is what I am in the story.
That's true. That's true. It's
So I
time
don't
goes so
know.
fast, doesn't it? It's like,
It,
oh,
it
oh, 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 oh.
Yeah, so and I'm
Well,
just so unfamiliar with upcoming actresses that are younger, so I don't
well,
know.
actually, my next question was going to be, what was one of your favorite memoirs? So I'm thinking you might say Cheryl
Wild.
Strayed's Wild.
Yeah,
Yeah, so that one
absolutely.
really spoke to you.
It did. She was so vulnerable when she wrote that, and it taught me to be vulnerable as well.
Yeah, yeah.
There were so many things. Actually, my I met my ex on my first fire, my ex-husband, and
Hmm.
I completely left out our relationship because it
Yes,
was too hard to write
I
about.
I heard that in your interview where you said I didn't write about him at all. And that is the
But it had to
beauty.
be in
That's
there.
that's the beauty of writing, is that it's you control it, and you can, make it go where you want, and where it's comfortable, where it's not comfortable, that's all up to you.
Right, but I
So,
learned from Cheryl Strayed that I had people tell me there's something missing here. It's really obvious that you're hiding something.
ah,
So he's in there now,
yes. Oh, good.
and I'm glad, because that helped me cope with that as well.
Yeah, because I've written a memoir too, and when I first started writing, I realized I was still so angry that when I wrote, it came out angry, and I'm like, well, no
Yep,
one wants to read that. So I had to wait a few years till I had it in a more comfortable place.
that's
But
so true.
right?
Yeah, and there were sections in there where I had to write that I was falling in love with him when things went so terribly wrong between us. How do you do that? I mean,
Yeah.
it was so hard. That's where I got out my journals and just wrote verbatim in some cases, because that was the only way I could
So you had
do
to
it.
remind yourself of what it actually was. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
very hard. But did you find the overall thing therapeutic? I mean, it's cathartic, right?
It wasn't at first.
No.
I had asked that a lot when it first came out, and it was like, no, it was brutal. I cried a lot. Um, I I was still angry that my career fell apart. I was
Yeah.
still angry that I was injured, and that I had to change careers to begin with. So at first, no, but I would say several years later, when finally the rawness went away,
Yeah.
I
So,
could,
but
because I had talked about it so much. I
So, but
was,
what I'm thinking is, but just listening to what you're saying now, is that
mhm.
probably in writing all of this, it was therapy for yourself, because you were reconnecting with things and revisiting stuff that maybe had you not been writing, you would have just pushed aside.
That's true. And when I say that, I didn't think it didn't feel cathartic at the time, because I
Right.
was so upset, and
Yeah. Because it was still hurting.
it still hurt. I cried
Yeah.
a lot, and I'd have to walk away sometimes. It's like,
So
no,
let
I
me
just can't do
ask you
this.
this, and if you're not prepared, that's fine too. But I
I
know
said,
us, if there's a favorite part in your book or something you'd like to read, um,
I could read the
for us.
beginning,
Yeah,
that
if there's
because
something
that's
that's
usually, yeah, that usually gets people, because otherwise it's hard to pick a spot where they're going to know what I'm
Oh,
talking about.
oh, I
So
see. And yeah, and without
yeah,
giving anything away. Okay.
okay, okay. Uh-oh, my crewmate Joe said, staring behind us. There go our packs. My Pulaski froze mid-swing. I lowered it to my side, momentarily forgetting the wildfire in front of me. Smoke swirled between the two of us. I leaned around Joe and saw nothing but pine trees on fire, which, of all things considered, made sense. Where did our packs go? Was an animal dragging them away? Then it hit me. Our packs were up in flames. The forest fire had jumped our line. The narrow defensive belt of raw earth we'd feverishly clawed through the woods had been breached. All of our gear gone, including our canteens of precious water. This was my first fire, but not Joe's. When he said we'd just rebuild the line, I thought, okay, no big deal. He seemed calm and not too concerned about when we'd get more water, so I didn't worry about that either. Even with our gear a pile of ashes, we'd no choice but to continue to build line. In my hands, I clutched a Pulaski invented by a forest ranger for just this kind of work. A combination axe and hoe, it made building line easier, but still brutal, hard work. With flames a mere foot away, I removed fuel from the fire's path down to bare mineral soil, our fire line. Soon my arm muscles burned from swinging the axe at small trees, my back pinched from leaning over to scrape pine needles and the duff underneath them. Intense heat from the fire and exertion made me thirsty. A drink of water would be really good right about now. I had some gum in my pack, which might have helped, but it had become a melted glob. As I chopped and scraped everything to bare earth, I mentally inventoried what I'd lost besides my canteen, headlamp, socks, my Levi jacket. Damn, I really like that jacket.
Yeah, that's a good, I mean, yes, that's a good beginning because I immediately know you're in danger. I immediately am feeling for you and I want to know more. Yeah, yeah, very good. Oh yeah, so I was just going to ask, so did you self-publish? Did you do a hybrid? Did you get traditional? I think you got traditional publishing, right?
Traditional publishing, yeah.
And you
I was
said it
bound and determined.
took a
Took a
while.
while. It did. I queried for 2 years.
Yeah.
And I was still editing though, and I had no interest in self-publishing. I wanted to do it the traditional way. I wanted it to be vetted by the industry.
Yeah.
And I felt there is no doubt in my mind that if I hadn't done this, that I probably would have published too soon. I had the amount of feedback that I got to make the book better. As hard as it was to hear criticism, I took it to heart, and I knew when it was something to be dismissed and what was something that was really important.
That's a really good point, that if you self-publish, you might just rush into it because you're like, oh, I'm done. And then, if you had that little window to wait a while, it might, that's a very good point. And did they publish your second memoir as well?
They did.
Okay, perfect. And then how are book sales going? I mean, does it make you something?
Oh, you don't make money writing books unless you're selling thousands of them.
Right.
And I would have loved to have sold thousands of them, but I didn't. But my publisher's happy. And I still sell books. I mean, I was at a book fair a couple of weeks ago, and I sold 5 there.
Yeah, fantastic.
I sold, at least 15 books in the last 3 months off Amazon. So, and for the book that was being published in 2018, I mean, to me, it's just still be selling,
that's great.
20 books a year.
And then it's given you sort of a platform to speak from, right?
I've given a lot of talks about this book, the publishing aspect, the writing aspect.
Very good.
The woman aspect.
Yes, and I would think even for maybe young women that are interested in going into the same job that you did.
Yes.
It'd be really nice to have some of that history and know, what to avoid and what to watch out for and how to navigate.
Yeah. It's been an interesting journey, and I've met people that still in the Forest Service that have said to me, "Oh, it must have been so hard in the 70s," and I tell them what happened, and they say, "Oh, well, gee, for me it was XYZ," and I realized, oh, it's worse now.
Oh,
it's actually worse.
Oh no, I didn't expect that.
Yeah, no, and I didn't either. In fact, it's a lot worse. And I followed that for a while. 2018, when my book came out, there was, first off, the fire season was absolutely phenomenal here. Millions of acres in California were burning. The whole country was burning. And there was a couple of women who were sexually assaulted on a fire crew that were on the news. And so it was just like perfect timing, in an unfortunate way, that my book came out then.
That's shocking.
It is.
Yeah, I mean, it does seem like fires seem more terrifying nowadays because of climate change and everything. It seems like they having these, like, what do they call them? The fire tornadoes. I
I
mean,
know
that just sounds
tornadoes, and
sounds terrifying.
it is terrifying. And I've seen, I mean, back in when I was on fighting fires, a 50,000 acre fire was huge.
Yeah.
You can add another zero now. They're
Oh,
500,000 acres. And it's climate change, it's drought, it's
mm,
insect damage, it's people building homes too close to the forest.
yeah.
Um,
Oof. No, that's
it is, it's really, it's scary. And I don't, and they say, well, when is California going to stop burning? And I think California stopped burning when there isn't anything left to burn, because
yeah.
there's just,
Yeah,
it's
I
just
know it's
ready for it.
very, well, thank goodness they've had quite a bit of rain though, because that's unusual, but so we'll see. But now so people can get your stuff on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, all the
Yes.
regular things. And do you have
Yes.
your own website for you?
I have a blog. It's
Ah, okay.
summersofirebook.blogspot.com.
Okay, and
I
I'll
don't
put that
sell it from there.
information on here.
Okay. Yeah, I don't sell it from there, but it has links to where you can buy it. But it also contains photos from back in the day, and I write
Oh,
a
good.
lot of articles. There's all kinds of interesting articles on firefighting, on women and men's jobs, memoir writing,
Okay.
public, how to find a publisher. My most popular post is how to find a small publisher for your book.
Ah,
Um,
and so what's next for you? Are you planning to write more? Are you going to write another book? Are you where are you going?
I'm in the middle, or well, I'm finishing up book 3, and it's fiction this time. And I have, this is hard. I have never written fiction. With a nonfiction memoir, you know what's going to happen
Yes.
because it
Yeah.
did. So, and people say, well, then it should be easy to write fiction because you can just make it up. And it's like, no,
No, it's probably
it's not easy.
harder.
I
Yeah.
think it's harder. I think
Yeah.
it's a lot harder.
Yeah.
And I'm also working on the script, and I have a connection and who a screenwriter, a screenplay writer, and she is hopefully she's got
So
connections.
would you do it as a feature film, or are you thinking to do a TV series, or
I've had agents tell me it would make a good TV series
I mean that would
because
be my thought too. Yeah.
yeah, because each summer could be a separate season.
Yeah.
So the script I wrote is just for the pilot. And write script writing is so different from writing a book. You have to completely change your mindset
Right.
because everything that happens has to either be visual or audible. You can't get inside somebody's head unless you're
Right.
doing a voiceover where they're
Right.
talking in the background.
Yeah,
And
it's very
it's
different.
really a different way to write.
But
It's
it's lovely.
challenging.
Don't you enjoy it?
Once I'm into it, because it
Yeah.
took me the longest time to get the hang of it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I kept because I was working from the book to write the script, and I
Right.
would pick up stuff from the book and then realize, oh, that won't work.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
can't see that. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah. Well,
but
good
I
for
don't
you.
mind
Well
challenges,
done. Well done. No, well done.
Yeah.
So, well, you know what? And is there anything else that you want to say to, I mean, is there anything that you want to add or?
Well, for any of your listeners who are working on one and thinking
Yes.
it will never happen, it will, and be patient with it and don't rush to publish.
Hmm.
I think even if you end up self-publishing, I still think you should query, because you're going to get feedback, and you have to have patience to get that feedback. But anything you hear from people that are in the industry is valuable because they know
Hmm.
what sells and they know what makes a good memoir. And if they're telling you there's something that needs to be fixed, listen to them.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's very good
Yeah.
advice. I do think you're really brave because, I mean, I think fires are terrifying. So, I mean, I don't want to be anywhere near
You
one.
know,
And I read
yeah, but
another
you know
part
what?
where you said you put your foot in it and your foot was getting hot, and I'm like, oh my God, I would be freaking out.
Well, we're trained, obviously, and you're
Yeah.
20. When you're 20, you can do anything.
Yeah, you're invincible, aren't you? Yeah, true.
Good.
All right. Thank you
I will
so
share.
much. All right.
Thanks, Vicki.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye now.